達者でな。うちは夜逃げするほど貧乏だったのか。
達者でな。
嘘だろ。親に夜逃げされ、誘拐に巻き込まれて、俺前世で何か悪いことしたか。
What happens when the most admired girl at an elite school is secretly incapable of taking care of herself? That is the hilarious, and surprisingly sweet, question at the heart of Rich Girl Caretaker. I'm secretly the caregiver of the most popular girl in this rich kid school *, one of the romantic comedy anime of summer 2026. The series takes the familiar, perfect rich girl setup and flips it in a fun way. At school, Hinako Konohana appears to be everything an elite young lady is supposed to be: beautiful, intelligent, graceful, polite, and completely flawless. But the moment she is away from everyone else, that perfect image falls apart. Hinako is terrible at basic daily tasks and depends heavily on the people around her. And now the person responsible for keeping her life and her reputation from falling apart is an ordinary high school boy named Itsuki Tomonari. What makes the situation even more complicated is that Itsuki isn't from Hinako's world at all. He comes from a financially struggling background and has been working hard just to get through everyday life. His circumstances suddenly change after he becomes involved in a kidnapping incident connected to Hinako, the daughter of one of Japan's most powerful conglomerates. From that strange encounter comes an even stranger arrangement. Itsuki becomes Hinako's secret caretaker. And that is where the real comedy begins. The anime is based on Yusaku Sakeshi's light novel series, with illustrations by Sakura Miwabe. Before becoming an anime, the story originally appeared as a web novel between 2020 and 2021. Hobby Japan later began publishing the light novels under its H.J. Bunko imprint in 2021, while a manga adaptation illustrated by Sorahiko Mizushima began serialization later that same year. By late 2025, the light novel series had reached 11 published volumes, while the manga had reached 5 compiled volumes. The television anime was officially announced in October 2025, and fans did not have to wait very long for more information. In January 2026, the production team confirmed that the adaptation would premiere during the July 2026 anime season. At the same time, the first teaser visual and promotional video gave viewers their first animated look at Itsuki and Hinako, including the huge contrast between Hinako's elegant public personality and her much lazier private self. The animation is being produced by Brains Base, with Shusei Morishita directing the series. Aya Yoshinaga is handling the series composition, while Hisashi Kawashima is credited with character design. The music is composed by Natsumi Tabuchi, Hani Nakamura and Meo Kurihara, with Takeshi Takadara serving as sound director. Morishita is particularly interesting for anime fans because he has previously worked on character-driven comedy and slice-of-life projects, making him a fitting choice for a story that depends so heavily on small character interactions. The main character is Itsuki Tomonari, voiced by Yuto Yumura. Itsuki is not a stereotypical wealthy school protagonist. In fact, his ordinary background is one of the most important parts of the story. He has had to become responsible because of his difficult circumstances, and those practical skills eventually make him the perfect person to deal with Hinako's complete lack of life skills. Then there is Hinako Konohana, voiced by Konomi Kohara. She is the heart of the series and the character responsible for its biggest comedic contrast. At school, she has to maintain the image of an impeccable young lady because of the expectations surrounding her family. Behind closed doors, however, she can barely manage basic chores. She is lazy, dependent, and much more emotionally vulnerable than her public image suggests. That contrast is not simply there for jokes. It also explains why Hinako becomes so attached to Itsuki. He is one of the few people who sees the real version of her and does not immediately judge her for it. Instead, he helps her, protects her secret, and gradually becomes someone she genuinely does not want to lose. The supporting cast adds another layer of romantic tension. Shiori Onishi voices Mayuri Tennoji, a wealthy student connected to another powerful family and someone who initially occupies the role of Hinako's rival. Ryo Tsuchiya voices Naraka Miyakojima, a shy girl who has difficulty connecting with other people. Kentaro Kumagai plays Katsuya Teisho, while Ami Mishima voices Karen Asahi. Mishima is also performing the ending theme, giving her a role both in front of and behind the music of the series. Two especially notable additions to the cast are Ami Koshimizu as Shizune Tsurumi and Takehito Kayasu as Keijin Konohana, Hinako's father. Shizune has a strict, composed personality and plays an important role in Hinako's household, while Keijin represents the enormous pressure placed on Hinako because of her family position. The premise sounds simple at first, but the story has a surprisingly unusual setup. Itsuki's life is already difficult when he becomes caught up in the kidnapping of Hinako. After the incident, he ends up being brought into the orbit of the Konohana family. Rather than simply becoming a friend or classmate, he takes on the responsibility of secretly caring for Hinako. At school, however, almost nobody is supposed to know what is happening. That creates the central joke of the series. Hinako has to continue acting like the perfect rich girl in front of her classmates, while Itsuki has to quietly prevent her private incompetence from destroying that carefully constructed image. It means that a simple household problem can become a full-scale emergency, and something as ordinary as eating, getting dressed, or completing a basic task can suddenly become Itsuki's responsibility. But the relationship gradually changes. At first, Itsuki is simply doing a job. He sees problems, fixes them, and tries to keep Hinako functioning. Hinako, meanwhile, is grateful to have someone who understands her real personality. As the episodes continue, that practical relationship starts becoming emotional. Hinako begins depending on Itsuki not only because she needs help, but because she genuinely wants him around. That is where the romance enters the picture. The series is not presenting their relationship as an instant confession or straightforward love story. Instead, it builds through everyday interactions, embarrassment, jealousy, misunderstandings, and moments where the characters accidentally reveal how important they have become to one another. The anime's first episode establishes the basic contrast between the two leads. Itsuki is an ordinary boy whose life is turned upside down after crossing paths with Hinako. The second episode moves into his first real day as her caretaker and gives viewers a much better idea of what it actually means to live inside the world of an elite academy. The third episode introduces Naraka more prominently, while the fourth episode, titled Lies and Secrets, pushes Itsuki and Hinako closer after Hinako experiences a fainting spell. Episode 5, Kidnap Me, then takes the story beyond simple school comedy. Itsuki attends an important business luncheon with Hinako, forcing the secret relationship between caretaker and young lady into a more formal and high-pressure environment. The situation also highlights just how much pressure Hinako's family places on her to perform the role of the perfect daughter. By the time the series reaches its 7th episode, the story is giving more attention to the other wealthy girls surrounding Itsuki and Hinako. Mairi in particular has become increasingly important, with her own family expectations and romantic feelings creating another source of tension. The latest episode also explores the complicated idea of wealthy heirs being expected to put family responsibilities above personal happiness, which gives the romantic comedy a more serious emotional layer beneath its jokes. That balance is probably one of the most interesting things about Rich Girl Caretaker *. It is easy to look at the premise and assume the anime is simply going to be another collection of cute rich girl comedy scenes, but the deeper story is really about people who are trapped by the expectations attached to their families. Hinako has wealth, status, beauty, and intelligence, but those advantages come with an enormous price. She cannot simply behave like an ordinary teenager because everyone expects her to represent her family perfectly. Itsuki, meanwhile, has almost none of the privileges surrounding Hinako, yet his difficult upbringing has given him practical skills and emotional independence that many of the elite students lack. That creates a fascinating reversal. The wealthy girl has everything except basic independence, while the ordinary boy has very little but knows how to survive. And then there are the other heirs, who show that Hinako's situation is not unique. Mairi and Naraka each have their own problems with family expectations, social pressure, and personal identity. As the story expands, the elite academy becomes less of a glamorous fantasy and more of a pressure cooker where every student is trying to figure out whether they are living for themselves or for the family name. The romance also benefits from that setup because Itsuki is not impressed simply by Hinako's wealth. He sees the girl underneath the image. Hinako can relax around him precisely because she doesn't have to perform. That makes their private scenes much warmer than the public ones, and it explains why her attachment to him grows so quickly. The production also received a major musical boost before the anime premiered. The opening theme is Seisei Seikaku no Oswa Shite, performed by Angela, while the ending theme, Kampeki Janai Watashi, is performed by Ami Mishima. The second promotional video, released in June, previewed Mishima's ending song and also introduced Katsuya Teisho's voice performance. As for the release schedule, the anime officially began streaming internationally on July 4, 2026, while its Japanese television premiere followed in the early hours of July 5 because of the late-night broadcast slot. The series is planned as a 12-episode first season, with episodes arriving weekly. And this brings us to the biggest current update. As of August 18, 2026, 7 episodes have aired. Episode 7 was released during the August 15-16 weekend, while Episode 8 is scheduled for the following weekend, August 22-23, depending on region and platform timing. The currently announced schedule runs through Episode 12 in September, with the season finale expected around September 1920. So there is still plenty of story left for the first season to explore. One of the biggest questions moving forward is how far Itsuki and Hinako's relationship will develop. Their caretaker arrangement already puts them in an unusual position, but the more time they spend together, the harder it becomes to pretend their bond is purely professional. At the same time, characters like Mairi create genuine romantic competition and bring their own emotional problems into the story. And that is ultimately why Rich Girl Caretaker has become an interesting addition to the 2026 anime lineup. It combines the familiar ingredients of an elite school romantic comedy with a surprisingly strong character hook. The girl everyone thinks is perfect is actually the person who needs help the most. Hinako's glamorous image may be what everyone at school sees, but Itsuki is the one who knows the truth. He sees the lazy Hinako. He sees the helpless Hinako. He sees the embarrassed Hinako. And increasingly, he is seeing the girl who is falling in love with him. Meanwhile, Hinako is discovering that having someone who understands the real you can be worth far more than wealth, status, or popularity. With 7 episodes already available and 5 more still scheduled for the first season, the story is only halfway through its first major journey. The upcoming episodes will have plenty of room to deepen the romantic rivalry, explore the complicated families behind these elite students, and push Itsuki and Hinako closer together. So if you're looking for a 2026 anime that mixes romance, comedy, wealthy school drama, secret relationships, and a heroine whose perfect young lady reputation completely collapses the moment she gets home, Rich Girl Caretaker is definitely one to keep an eye on. Because behind every perfect young lady is apparently a disaster waiting to happen, and unfortunately for Itsuki Tomonari, he is the one person who has been assigned to clean up the mess.